Live from the Asia Tech Podcast Studio, back with me, Andi, and of course my co-host Sabir.
What's up, guys?
And today in the Esports Asia show, we have the co-founders of Josudo, and they are Jesus Garbayo and Anik Islam.
Hey, thanks.
What is up, guys? Thank you so much for coming over.
Yep.
How do you guys feel today?
Really good, really
Really
good.
good?
It's like our first podcast.
All right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
First
Yeah,
time for
excited to be here.
Yeah.
I see you also put on your best host show. voice there.
No,
Excellent
yeah,
stuff.
I mean, for an intro, you gotta have to do that.
Right. Makes sense.
But
makes
yeah,
sense.
I'm just gonna put that off now, and let's just start and talk about stuff.
Let's.
So first things first, let's just talk about how you got into gaming in general, not
Okay.
like esports,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
one that we're gonna be talking about for the most part today, but gaming. Like you mentioned your first game, right? But let's just talk about how you got into gaming in the first place.
I don't know, like when we got our first computer back
Right.
home, I remember the guy who installed all the softwares. He noticed like there's a kid in the house as well, so he just put in some games along with it. The very old ones, House of
Right.
Dead,
Oh,
Virtual
wow.
Cop 2, then
Damn.
Need for Speed 2,
Oh,
Road
damn.
Rash, so all those like
He
yeah.
was actually-
all legal copies, I'm
Yeah.
sure, right?
Sure.
So he was actually thinking about you when he was installing the
Yeah,
computer.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
sweet, man.
Exactly.
And now you're here. See, that guy plays a big role.
Definitely,
In this.
yeah.
Jesus, what about
Yeah.
yourself?
Oof, for me, it's a completely different age. So for me, it started probably with a Game Boy, the original Game Boy,
Ooh,
mind you.
nice.
The Tetris, the Super Mario's, all of those wonderful games.
What about Pokemon?
No,
Nope.
that came a lot later. And I never
Yeah.
really got into
Really?
it. Also, I did try
Right.
Pokemon Go. I'll admit,
Okay.
Okay.
Oh.
but that's about
Everybody
it.
did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just talk about that game that you mentioned earlier before we start this podcast. So, Anik, you mentioned a game. What was the title?
Need for Speed Most
Need for
Wanted.
Speed Most Wanted.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
Barrett, we're gonna have to pull it out right now. So let's just, what did you think and feel when you were playing this game? Like,
So like most other racing games before this, they didn't like it was just racing. Like you just like race along. There are some different modes. You can race along with your friends, but I think this was the first game I came across which had a like story behind it.
story,
Yeah.
Exactly.
right?
And that was probably when I upgraded my computer as well. So all the sweet
sweet.
graphics, like
Yes.
they really came about. All the sweet cars and the music was freaking awesome.
Music,
as well.
yeah.
I remember the
definitely.
music being really
Yeah.
good, actually,
Yeah.
for the Need for Speed
Yeah.
games. That was
There
something
were some tracks by Disturbed.
Yeah.
That sounded so
So good.
good. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the first track I still remember to this day was Riders on the Storm from Need for
Oh,
Speed
yes.
Underground
Right.
2,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
so good. Like, I don't
Yeah.
even remember playing the game. I was just watching my brother play. But that music, though, that kept
Yeah.
drawing me in, and I was like watching who.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
very good. Yeah.
So that's Need for Speed. That's on the screen right now.
Yeah. Nostalgia.
Oh,
I tried.
man.
I
Yeah.
tried playing this on console, Most
Okay.
Wanted, but
Yeah.
I didn't get past number 10, I think. 'Cause
Really?
Dude, it's
Okay.
freaking hard to play a racing game on console. I'm telling
Really,
you.
I find the
mean,
exact opposite. I
Yeah,
started on
dude.
computer,
Is that
but
so?
I find on console much easier.
Yeah,
with,
it's
with
so
the
much
joystick.
easier on console. And I'm a
Okay.
PC player now.
Right,
so I
right,
started
right.
off as a console player.
Okay.
All
Okay.
the big titles that I
Right.
played were all console, like
Man.
Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Need for Speed, Burnout,
right.
Resident Evil. Like that was
Resident
probably
Evil,
my
yeah,
biggest. But I don't understand how you play freaking racing games on a PC.
Yeah, I guess I just really haven't gotten around to mastering the art
Yeah.
of the controller.
Fair enough.
But whatever. Jesus, what about your game?
The game that comes to mind immediately is for sure Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Zelda.
That's just one of those RPGs that captivates you from the very first second and just kind of drives you all the way to the end, and you
Right.
feel invested in the characters. You want
Mm.
to see what happens. You want to rescue the princess, of course. You have to beat the bad guy Ganondorf. And yeah, back then those graphics were pretty okay as well. But it's mostly about the story for
It's
sure.
only about the
Mm,
story,
It's
yes,
mostly
yes.
about the story.
Yeah.
I have a confession to make. I didn't really play Zelda.
Dude, I was going to say the same thing. I never played
Oh,
Zelda.
Yeah,
it's
but,
fantastic.
You know,
games,
people
especially
always
that one.
keep raving around Zelda. I mean, I
Yeah.
browse Reddit,
Yeah.
and one of those sub-threads will always have a mention of Zelda somewhere.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking, like, maybe I should start, but I'm just afraid it's too late. Do you guys think it still lives to this day? If I
Yeah,
just
for
play,
sure.
like, for example, the Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
What year was this from? 1990s, right?
98 maybe.
98,
98,
yeah,
right.
Six, seven, somewhere around
Right.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess that point where you said the story is what's captivating you, that will live forever.
Yeah,
That will live forever.
That will live forever.
And the proof
so-
is early Final Fantasy, early Zelda as well. Link to the Past. The graphics are 8-bit graphics,
Yeah.
not even in color.
Yes.
So and they're still fascinating. I
Yeah.
picked up recently. I think it was a Final Fantasy 4. I was telling the guys about this,
Right.
and I got into it on an iPod screen,
An
on
iPod
a very
screen.
small iPod screen, and I was totally into it. I was playing that like all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. That's the best part about these games. They tell you a story. You're invested in it. And you don't care what you see, 8-bit, whatever.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
honestly, you take any gamer, right, and you
Yeah.
put like one of their childhood games in front of you. No matter how advanced the technology will be, I think they'll still play the game,
Yes.
like from
Definitely.
front to back.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so that's the story part. But one factor that kept me playing games was, I want to get good,
Yeah.
right? I want to be the best at one game that I play. I want to be the boss. And of course, if it's a multiplayer game, I want to be the hell of my friends, right?
Yeah.
So this is how we're going to talk about what you guys are doing with your
Sure.
company, right?
Yeah.
But before that, let me just ask you guys, what does the name mean, Josudo?
So it's actually a combination of two words. It's a made-up word. Josu in Japanese means skilled. Do is kind of the add-on to the sentence, like in dojo or in bushido, for example, which means
Right.
the art of or the way of. So the combination of the two words would mean something like the art of the skilled.
Wow.
Damn, that's
that's,
really good.
But it's a made-up word.
Made-up
It's,
Right. I mean, you can put words into the dictionary now.
yeah.
So
that's what we're
maybe
trying to
this
do.
is one of the things that's gonna come in.
And
That's
there.
one
actually
of the
a really-
deciding factor was we got .com for it.
Yes.
Well,
the URL was
so,
available,
yeah,
yes. The truth comes out
exactly.
eventually.
So that really sealed the deal for
Yeah.
us.
All right,
Yeah.
this is the stories we want to tell people, guys. So
Yeah.
keep it coming.
No, that's a creative way of doing
Yeah.
it. You know,
Yeah.
if I ever
Yeah.
come up with a company, please help me out with the name as well.
No,
Yeah.
if you think about it, it wasn't that difficult. I mean, everybody knows the term gosu, which is the
Yes.
Korean for the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we just tried to think a little bit outside the box, not that much outside, just a little bit,
Yeah.
and change language, and it's very similar, and then
cool.
add the do at the end. There you go.
Yeah.
I like it.
It
I
just
like
happens to be similar, yeah. Gosu to Josu,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's nice. Korean, Japanese,
Yeah.
that's great. So let's just share a bit more. Like, how did you start Josudo in the first place? Who came up with the idea?
So as I shared before, that we were part of Antler's first batch. So Antler works in like two phases. The first phase of the program, they get like, imagine we had 60 people. Nobody
Right.
knew each other, like
Mm.
all strangers. So during the first 2 months, that's the first phase, we were supposed to ideate with different people. So
Wow.
at that moment, like all three of the co-founders of Josudo, we were working on very different topics. I was working
Wow.
on something on robotics. Jesus was very deep into something related to sustainability. Aman, he was working on cash on delivery, so very different stuff.
Wow.
But I think it was during August, so the international 2018 was
Yeah.
going
Yeah,
on during
yeah,
that
yeah.
time. So Aman and I used to watch the like live streams, or at least the replays, every day after work, like
Right.
around 7 together.
you get together to watch.
Exactly, because he was
Wow.
a fan of Dota 2, I was a fan of Dota 2 as well.
Mm-hmm,
And then once we figured that, like, our original ideas were not like, getting any traction,
all right.
so we figured that, like, why not do something related to games? And esports is freaking big on its own.
yes.
So then we started brainstorming, and that's when Jesus also joined. He was like, I mean, he's also passionate about
Mhm.
gaming. So all three of us joined forces, and we brainstormed for about 2 or 3 days, trying to figure out what's missing
What's
right
missing.
now.
Mm.
Exactly. And that's where the whole idea of about personalized coaching came about. Yeah. Then we had some paid validation
Mm.
to prove to Antler that it actually there is a demand for it. And yeah, the rest is history. Then we have been working towards finding the product market fit. We have
Mhm.
had a lot of signups already on the website, a lot of coaching sessions already done.
Right.
We're serving around 5 games right now. We have coaches for 5 games.
5 games. All
Yeah.
right. What are
Yeah.
those games?
Dota 2,
Mm-hmm.
League of Legends,
Right.
Fortnite, Overwatch, and CSGO. We recently
CS:GO.
got a CSGO
CS:GO.
coach.
All
Yeah.
right. That's
Nice.
interesting. That's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool when you talk about it. Like
Yeah.
60 people, random people who don't know each other.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah.
suddenly there's this this idea and you just talk about it, then
Yeah.
someone else joins in and you guys just started this.
Yeah.
So Jesus, what was the first thing you thought about this when you just started joining these guys?
Yeah.
So frankly, I wasn't very big in esports at that point. I mean, I played on my own. I enjoyed watching other people play on my own, like friends and
Right.
stuff. But the whole esports phenomenon, I wasn't really a part of that yet. But I didn't have to scratch very far in the surface to see that this was a very big deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the gaming background was there. In fact, we were talking before with Anik about his previous idea, which was
Yes.
a VR headset for games, and I was
Right.
trying to help him out as
Yeah.
much as I could
Yeah.
without being a part of it, because I guess I didn't truly believe that had much of a future.
Wait, did you know this? I mean,
It's
Or-
new.
It's all coming out.
It's all good. Like
This is good.
Josudo, Josudo is in focus right now. So yeah,
That's
all
good.
right,
Yeah.
that's really good. So you mentioned you've got signups and you have 5 games, right?
Yes.
How have the feedback been?
So coaching in general is not a new behavior that we are pushing. Like if you go back to the earliest days of online games, it has been there, but
Yes.
in a very, very fragmented manner, like word of mouth or probably on forums or your friends who's really good, he would be like, hey, I'd be willing to coach you guys, something like that. So what we intend to do is bring them together under one platform. That was the whole point of Josudo. But even after that, when we talk about coaching to gamers on forums or Discord servers, they'll be like, "What, coaching? I don't need coaching. I can just grind my way and get better.
Yeah.
Why would I need
That's
a
not-
coach?"
That's not true.
Really?
You
Okay.
can't grind your way and get better.
That's
Not
the
always.
mentality of
That's the people.
a lot of gamers, especially in
Especially
Asia, I
here
guess.
in Southeast
Exactly.
Asia,
Yeah,
yeah.
But once they take a coaching session, their whole perspective changes.
Yeah.
Right.
We ask every time someone takes a coaching session, we make an effort to speak to them after that, to ask them what they liked about the session, what they didn't like,
Right.
what they would like to have, and they 99% of the times it has been very positive, and we are already seeing people coming back for
Right.
more sessions. We are already seeing the word of mouth effect, people randomly coming to my to our Discord server and asking for coaching. They're like, my friend had a coaching session
Right.
with one of your Fortnite coaches and he
Wow.
got really better. I'd like to have one as well.
Right.
Nice.
So we are already seeing that effect.
That's
That's
great.
awesome,
That's great.
yeah.
So, okay, treat me like someone that doesn't know what your platform does or what it is. I'm just a regular gamer. How would I go through the process step by step of using it and finding a coach?
Sure. So basically, we want you to kind of book a coach first on our platform. So once you book, we get your contact details. And then we'll get in touch with you. We'll ask you about your current level in the game, what you expect to learn, and your times that you're available.
Right.
Once we have those information, we'll connect you up with the coach so that you can have a coaching session that's convenient
Wow.
for both of you.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So it's not just you wanting to get a coach and you just find a random guy. You actually have to go through the process of evaluating where you're at this game right now.
Sure.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's really good, and
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see how people share with each other
Yeah.
the feedback that, hey, my friends really did get better
Yeah.
through coaching.
Exactly.
So
There's a selfish aspect to this as well. Don't
Yeah.
forget,
Alright.
most of these games are group games, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you think
yeah.
Dota, you think League of Legends. So the guy who's getting better on his own, he also wants his team to get better with him, right? Because otherwise, that's not getting anywhere.
True.
Yeah.
That's true.
So we don't know to what extent this is actually selfish reasons that they want their whole team to
Right.
improve, or it's really
Is that something you're looking at as well? Like kind of group rates?
Yeah,
team
or
coaching,
Team
absolutely,
coaching,
yes.
yeah.
So some of our coaches are actually ex-pros. They've been pros before, so they have very much experience in the pro level and in the team aspect of things. So they can definitely help in that aspect
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So there's something we're looking to incorporate. In fact, we've already had some classes for teams,
Right.
but we want to kind of make it even more standardized,
more
and more
standardized,
structured. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Right. So coaching, right? We talk about it's been around for a long time,
Yeah.
but now we're gonna see the professionalization of it. Where do you see the direction of coaching in terms of the players themselves realizing that they need to get better?
Right.
And of course, we're gonna have more tournaments and events endorsed by governments and people, right?
Yeah.
And how does coaching fit in the whole ecosystem?
Sure.
So, in a way that it's gonna take esports forward as an
Right.
industry, and not
Yep.
just a fragment of the industry.
Yeah.
Okay, so like the first part of the question, like where does coaching lie at this moment? So we are seeing this increasing trend of esports becoming more like traditional sports, and you know how it's quintessential for traditional sports teams to have a coach. And we are seeing that in esports as well. And something that was very significant that caught my eye recently was in the international 2018. The coaches were actually allowed inside the booth.
Oh,
With the
wow.
players
I didn't
when
know
they
that.
were like drafting
For the team as
the
well.
teams.
Yes.
Exactly.
Wait.
So we are seeing a more like hands-on approach for the coaches.
They weren't allowed to do that before? The
They
TI
weren't.
coaches?
Yeah, before that they weren't allowed
Oh,
to.
really?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
in League, they're allowed to be there the
Right.
whole time
Right.
during
So I think
pick
for
and ban.
Dota 2, like they started.
They just
doing this.
started,
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
wow, okay.
And like every team, like if you go to their bios in like Wikipedia, like
Yes.
you'd always see like the coaches
a
over
coach
there.
title,
Exactly.
yes.
So so every team they would have like one coach with
Yes.
them. It's just like this whole thing about like esports becoming more like traditional sports. And in terms of like Josudo, like how we like view it is how much of a difference a personal trainer would make when you're at the gym.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Or whenever like you are taking a music lesson, how much of a difference a one-on-one tutor would make. Because these guys, they already want to get better. They're spending time, like they're watching like ton
Demos,
of videos,
replays, yes.
ton of videos on YouTube, ton of videos on Twitch live streams. They're researching like gazillion like forum and blog posts.
Yeah.
They're spending money as well because like some of these Twitch streamers, they also subscribe.
Yes.
And they pay
Yeah,
money for
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
They also like they get the coaches from these forums as well, which are also paid. So there was this like kind of like statistics that 2/3 of the people who actually like watch these sort of like gaming contents, it's because they want to learn and get
Right.
better.
Yes.
Right.
So what we want to do is to make sure this like learning journey is a lot more personalized and a lot more efficient. And we believe like through a coach who can like exactly pinpoint the mistakes that you
Yes.
are making, the bad habits that you have developed over time, I think one-on-one interaction is a lot better.
Yeah.
in
Right.
that
What's
sense.
that?
And-
I mean
and-
that makes sense. Yeah. Sorry.
And regarding the tournaments that you were mentioning earlier about government sponsoring and so on, so we're not going to wait for governments to sponsor it,
Yes.
even though they are sponsoring it around tournaments and leagues as well, because we view it as a complementary thing to the whole learning experience, as a way for players to test their newly acquired
Yes.
skills that they've learned in their coaching sessions, to test them against other competitive players, against their peers, etc., to see how much they've actually improved, right?
course.
So we're going to have this whole weekly, monthly leagues, and then also live in-person tournaments for all of our games. So we're going to create that as well.
Oh wow.
That's really interesting because now it's not just the competition between players. Competition between coaches.
Yeah.
You get that?
Well, it's
Because-
between coaches. Okay,
Yeah,
there we go.
right. So now
Yeah.
you're able to reevaluate whether this coach is effective, and
Yeah.
it's really fun because now you're adding an element into this competition that esports already is,
Sure.
and now you're adding element to that.
Yeah.
So, and another point is now that coaches are getting more involved in esports, and of course
Sure.
through your platforms and other platforms, they are becoming more visible, and they've been provided with a platform to promote themselves, and this is a chance for them to build audience as well. Do you see this as one of your goals for the coaches?
For sure. I mean, our ultimate goal would be for coaches to make a living out of this.
Yeah.
For this no longer to be a side job, which is what
Yes.
it is right now for most of these people, for most of these coaches, but to make it a full-time thing, that they can their skills that they've taken so long to acquire and to develop,
Yeah.
that they can actually monetize them and make that their
Right.
full-time job. That's our dream. That's what we look forward to, and that of course goes by making them personalities for people to know them, for
Yes.
people to
Yeah.
kind
Sure.
of look up to them. And
I mean,
so
it
on.
helps
So
them. So how do you guys screen potential coaches? You know,
Right.
like what are the criteria?
So there are like two aspects to that. So the first one is totally data centric, how skilled they are. So for each of the games, we have a minimum skill level for them. For example,
okay,
if
okay.
it's Dota
Threshold,
2, it's a like imagine MMR,
Yeah.
like minimum
Yeah.
6,000 MMR,
Yeah.
something
Right,
around that
right.
line.
Sure.
And those data are very much publicly available.
Mhm,
So we
mhm.
ask them to pass their Dota buff account, or if
Mhm.
it's Fortnite, their Fortnite tracker account. And then we can verify that, okay, this guy is actually good at the game.
Legit.
Yeah. But someone who's skilled at the game, he might not necessarily be a good teacher, right?
Yes.
So
Right.
that's when like we come in and we take a mini coaching session, imagine for 15 minutes.
Right.
Amongst the three of us, we take a coaching session with them just to see whether they're good at talking, whether they can make the student comfortable, whether they
Right.
can actually demonstrate whatever they're saying. They can demonstrate in game as well,
Right.
and they can actually impart the knowledge back. So that's the intangible parts. So once someone fulfills both of these criteria, that's when we onboard them as a coach onto our
Damn.
platform.
So you guys are working overtime to make sure that there's quality
Absolutely.
on both ends.
Absolutely.
Where were you guys when I was trying to find an Arabic teacher when I was a kid? what was going on here?
Yeah, but this is essentially the value we provide, because these coaches are also available elsewhere. You can find
Yeah.
them in
Yes,
forums, you can find them in
exactly.
different places.
Yeah.
But the primary value that we bring today is that these guys are vetted. We've
Yeah.
tried these guys. We know
Mm.
they're good. We can offer you
Yeah.
somebody who's actually going to help you get better.
Yeah.
So, and then of course the whole payment side of things for the coach to make sure he's going to get paid, for the student to know that
Right.
the coach is actually going to receive his
course.
payment, and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. So, but yeah, this is essentially the value we bring: vetting
Right.
of the coaches.
So
it's,
do
it's
you
super
do you
important.
guys have to actually play with them, like in a game in a
Yes.
mini coaching session?
Yeah, something
So
like that.
so
Yeah.
now you're playing 5 games.
Exactly. This
I guess,
requires-
yeah.
This requires
Yeah.
each of us to specialize in one of the games.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Aman and Anik are mostly taking care of the Dota and the
Dota.
LOL, since,
Right.
they're fairly
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah.
I've done the most. I've
For
mostly
shooters.
done Fortnite and Overwatch.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
CS, I think
Nice.
Aman is the best
Recently
one for
done. Yeah,
CS as
yeah.
well. yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so one interesting question: have you guys encountered a coach that's below your level?
Yes, we did.
All right.
We-
So
we,
what's the story?
So we had this guy who was around 4,000 MMR.
Okay.
Yeah, which is
Oh,
like
wow.
quite below our threshold, and so he came up and he said that, and he was very confident about it. That's what I liked about it. He came up and he said that, look, I'm 4,000 MMR. I'm aware of my skill level, but I can teach someone who's at like 2K or 2.5K.
Mm.
If it's beyond that, they would be like, I can't do it. But like, if it's 2 to 2.5K,
Then he's good.
I think like, I can impart quite a lot of knowledge for them. I
Right.
can help them really improve.
Interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and he charged a very, very small price as well,
Right.
like one of the
Right.
lowest in all our pool of
Okay.
coaches, and we really liked his honesty and the confidence he brought, and he used to stream on Twitch as well. These
Right.
live classes, and I actually sat through
One of the
his
streams.
one of his streams,
Okay.
and I liked the way the guy was teaching as well. So I was like, you
Right.
know what? I'll make an exception for you. So
Oh,
we actually
that's
got him on
interesting.
board.
Has
No,
he been
that's-
doing
yeah.
well? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Has he
Yeah, it's been all right. Like he's based in USA, so
Right.
like there's this obvious time difference, but like he's been doing all right.
been- right.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really good, because now I can see that there's different segments of coaching as well. So for these kinds of people, right,
Yeah.
they can actually help us bring newer players into the game.
Mhm.
Like when we talk about people who have 6,000 MMRs,
Yeah.
they're already talking about a different part of Dota or League of Legends, right?
Yeah.
And the amount of knowledge and the type of knowledge that they impart to the players who needs coaching are different from those that are 4,000 MMR talking to 2,000 MMR.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's really great to see that this initiative could be a way to help people ease into gaming more and more,
Sure,
because our
sure.
interest is we need to get people to get invested in this
Mhm.
one way or another.
Mhm.
And one way of that is to get good in the game.
yeah.
But before you get to those 6,000, 8,000 MMR coaches, you need to go through the 4,000.
Yeah.
Maybe 3,000. I don't know. I don't think 3,000 is a good threshold, but
And it's
Yeah.
funny you should say this, because we've actually got some interest from publishers coming up to us saying, hey, we're interested in our game being there, because they
Yes.
recognize the value and people kind of getting better at their game, hence getting hooked on their game, hence
Yeah.
playing more and spending more.
Yeah.
So we've had some interest with publishers from that point of view. So they see this as well.
Yeah,
So,
it's really great. And you mentioned watching the Dota 2 stream, right? The international.
Yeah.
I always mention this, that Dota, they did a good job of catering to the newer players by providing a newbie stream,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So what you're doing is sort of in parallel to this. You're helping people who are starting to get into a game,
Exactly.
ease into the world that we are in right now.
Sure. The coaching is not necessarily for people who are starting at very zero,
Right.
but we are
yes.
not totally ignoring them either, because another aspect of Josudo are structured video lessons that are like hosted on Josudo website itself. So we have these like lessons that are meant for like very like beginners who are just starting out the game, like the very basics. So you can say that these things are already available on YouTube. Yes, they definitely are, but they're like in a very like fragmented manner, and they don't get updated on a regular basis. So that's something we want to do as well, that like we want to like supply a steady stream of updated and qualityful content on the website itself. That's so that like it's meant for not only the beginners. Now it's meant for beginners, but like other gamers at different skill level, they can also and get some benefit out of it. Yeah.
So
That's really
the idea of these videos is to break it down as much as we possibly can
Yeah.
into, I mean, for example, Fortnite, you have the weapons, you have the building, you have the maps, kind of the different the looting basically. So we break it down as much as we can. And so the whole course might be between 10 to 12 videos, and then each video is maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. So very, very short, kind of bite-sized pieces.
All right. Yeah, that's definitely needed, because you can't learn everything in one go, right?
Yeah, as much as you want to.
Yeah, one thing I've been wondering is different games would require different proficiencies of coaching, right?
Sure.
Which game have you found to be the hardest for coaches to
question.
impart that skill to? Like, for example, Dota is a bit hard for me, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
I think it's very much game dependent. For example, if it's some FPS or some battle royale, like it's the complexities are not there. In Dota 2, like for example, you have 110 heroes.
Exactly.
You have hundreds of items. You have hundreds of combinations, and then you have these like regular updates every 3 months. That kind of changes the whole
everything.
Exactly. So we are like waiting for the 7.21. So they're introducing a new hero. They're gonna update, like make a lot of hero changes. So it's exciting at the same time. Like it's kind of scary because you need to like learn all these new things again.
So this is an interesting I'd say issue or problem that you brought up, right? I mean, recently, I think it was either yesterday or 2 days ago, Mark Cuban comes out and he tweets, I'm never going to buy an esports team. Because why? You're changing the sport, right? Every couple of weeks or months, you're literally changing the rules of how the game is played. And then the player burnout is too much. They can't handle it, the mental and physical stress. So again, given that it also affects exactly what you guys are doing in your line of work, right?
True,
the
but
coaching.
Yeah, but then again, like it caters to the like gamers themselves. Like Dota 2 has been there for 8 years, League of Legends even for longer. And I think these updates, these changes to the games, I think it still preserves the newness of the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's part of the argument that I always give to people who are skeptical about esports, because the value in esports that comes from the constant changes is the entertainment value.
Of course.
Because then now you're not stuck with this game that's played the same way every day, everywhere, by the same people. So now, and one thing I think it's interesting is a different patch would actually allow different players to become more skilled than other people who are actually skilled before that patch.
Exactly, because there have been cases of like teams abusing patches.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
I'm not sure if you're aware, like in the International 3 Team Alliance, they
split pushing, right?
Split pushing, exactly. The Death Prophet split push. Nature's Prophet split push. So that allows to balance the playing field. And another I was watching Shroud
Shroud.
I was watching Shroud. So he was playing Call of Duty, and there was probably someone on the on the chat who asked that, why are you not playing PUBG anymore? And then he pointed out something which I think was really hits the nail, that Fortnite, they have these seasonal updates every now and then, which preserves the newness of the game. PUBG, they just they just kept it like that. They didn't include any new element for a very long time, and it just went it just went stale. And then people just moved in hordes from PUBG to Fortnite.
Right.
Yeah. So I think these sort of patch updates and stuff, it is kind of necessary.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think definitely for the gamers. I mean, when we're thinking of gaming, the gamers are the majority, right?
Exactly.
2.2 billion in the world.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Yeah.
But then where do we find the balance for an industry that's just starting, like esports? Because, I mean, he does have a good point, right?
Yeah.
The player burnout is pretty harsh.
It's
in
real.
terms of it.
Yep.
So, I mean, where's the balance? I know it's a hard question, but just up for discussion. What do we do? Do we limit the patch changes? Do we...
At the end of the day, the market commands. If the market requires the game to become updated every so often, then so be it. Then that's what's going to happen. And the publishers will follow that. And the ones who don't follow that, as apparently PUBG is doing right now, will be left on the way, right? So the market demands changes, so changes will happen. But this also makes it more dynamic. This makes it more fun for everyone, which in its core is what gaming is all about, right? About having a fun time, about enjoying yourself.
Yeah,
I mean, it just comes to mind now the latest patch with Fortnite, actually around Christmas when they introduced the planes and everything chaos. Oh no, now people can fly around, shoot me from above and everything. And then they introduced the epic sword, which was way imbalanced, way more powerful than everything else, and everybody was.
But
going
it only lasts for a little
sword.
while, right?
Then they removed it, but it makes it funny too, because then there's mistakes and it gives opportunities for kind of random stuff to happen like that.
Okay, so this is related to what you guys are doing and coaching in general, because with the ever-changing game with new patches every few weeks, that means the skill of people to play the game and to master the game requires updates and higher dedication and investment, be it in time, and of course if you're paying for coaching, then money comes as well. Does this discourage people from investing their energy, time, money into mastering a game? Because like you said, patches come, it keeps the freshness of the game, but you have to upgrade your skills as well. And maybe some people would feel, man, I'm never gonna master this game, so I might as well not do it. What do you think about this?
I think the basic mechanics of the game, they're still preserved. The skill set that you need to at least get the basics done, for example last heating, stuff like that, then just understanding the map and rune timings, these things kind of stay the same. It's just kind of on a macro level, certain heroes or the meta that might change. So I think a lot of the skill set can still be carried over. It's just the combination of things might be different in the a new patch. So in that regards, I don't think it's the patch updates are gonna affect the the enthusiasm of gamers. On the contrary, I think it would actually push them to invest more time.
What about to the coaches? Because coaches also need to upgrade their skills, right? And this affects their ability to coach people.
But they're making money out of it, right? So for them, it's kind of they have a vested interest in staying up to date and in practicing as much as they need to stay up to date.
Absolutely, right?
So they do.
That's part and parcel in what they're trying to do, right? They need to train up for themselves and then train other people up. Despite all that said, I love patches. I think it's great. When new heroes come out, everyone just loses their shit. Imbalances exist, but it's great. It keeps it dynamic. I love it.
I used to think that I play Mobile Legends, right? Do you guys play?
No.
No?
actually.
Oh, that's a
you should
shame.
Try it.
You should try it.
Sure.
Because one thing why you should try it is it's pretty easy.
Oh,
Okay.
it's super easy.
It's one of those easy
So
to
it's
get
a-
into, but hard to master kind of
Yeah,
thing, right?
yeah.
Yes.
Clash of
Okay.
Clans
Yes.
and so on.
I don't know how they did it, but they let you just win
Yes.
straight away. Like
Okay.
you're just kicking ass, and then you're like, okay,
And
sweet.
then everybody loves it. Yeah.
Then you start playing it, and you're like, oh damn, it's getting
It's getting
harder.
harder
It's getting
and
no.
harder,
I want to
yes.
keep kicking ass.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yes,
of course,
yes,
of course.
yeah, that
Then they
progression.
want to get better.
Yeah.
That sounds like a game we need to add coaching for,
Sure.
right?
No, but
Definitely
seriously,
huge
look
market
into-
for it.
Huge
Yeah.
market.
Huge
Yes,
market.
and
No.
you should look into it.
Jokes
Yes.
aside,
Yeah.
there is a mobile plan.
Yes.
Second half of this year, we're going to have a mobile app
Yeah.
Nice.
with coaching for
Oh,
these
that's
games.
awesome.
Exactly.
That's
Perfect.
awesome.
So
That's awesome.
Mobile Legends, Arena of Valor,
Vainglory,
Vainglory,
Clash
exactly.
I'm
Royale.
actually really
Yeah.
excited to see how tech advances can help you guys.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
where you could have like an overlay of like real
Exactly.
live
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
date, coaching.
Yeah.
and that would be pretty
Exactly.
cool actually.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
an interesting space.
So yeah, I was talking about Mobile Legends in the sense
Mhm.
that I used to think the constant patches and adding of new heroes is like killing the game because
Okay.
people would, most people wouldn't spend all their money on just buying new heroes, new skins, and everything.
Mhm.
But now that I see this different side of patches, it keeps me on my toes.
Right.
Like every time I see a new hero, I gotta master this hero somehow.
Mm.
Right.
And this is what I think is the argument against those people saying
Yeah.
that patches are killing
Yeah.
the industry.
Yeah.
So it's really great. And of course, with the addition of maybe you guys are gonna get into this
Mhm.
platform and provide coaching
Yeah.
for it, people are just gonna keep pouring in because
Yeah.
now we see that. Of course, with the help of C Games 2019,
Exactly.
Mobile
Mhm.
Legends and all these games are featured as a medal event. The prestige is there, and
Yeah.
people will just be more interested to just get better in this
Yeah.
game.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the trends, like such trends like C Games. So what are the what other trends are you guys excited about in the industry right now?
I think the involvement of the traditional brands,
Mhm.
that's something like pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Coca-Cola got involved.
Yeah.
Then German
KFC.
Nike,
Yeah.
KFC.
Honda just
exactly.
partnered
with
with
Team Liquid,
Yeah.
exactly,
It's
as their
huge.
Audi, Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah.
Mercedes,
Yeah.
Mercedes has been
Yeah.
involved
Yeah.
for a while
Yeah.
now.
For a while
which is
now, yes.
surprising,
Yeah.
Yes.
Then there was this Dota 2 tournament where the MVP got Audi car. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
So that's
Yeah.
like that's something like pretty awesome.
Pretty
that,
awesome,
yeah.
yeah.
That like there's more avenues of monetization.
Yes.
Then also like again like you mentioned this recognition of esports
Esports.
as a proper like sports, and then like gamers being dubbed as esports athletes. Yeah. Then there are gamers who are getting scholarships back in
Yes.
USA. That's a like really good trend as well.
Yes.
So these things like they look really good into like pushing the scene as much as possible.
Mm.
Yeah.
What about you, Jesus?
I think it's very exciting what's happening with the Overwatch League, with kind of city teams coming onto play. So then it's no longer just my team A, my team B. It's my city's team, like it
Yes.
happens in traditional sports. Again, like
Exactly.
Anik is saying,
Yeah.
it's very much following a parallel with
Yeah.
traditional
Yeah.
sports.
Yeah.
So I think I know some people don't like this very much, but I'm a big fan. I think this is the way it should be, because then your allegiances are going to be very clear from the
Yes,
beginning.
and
This is your city. This is going to be your team.
Yeah.
So it's
Exactly, and it's gonna unify that fragmentation that's
Exactly.
happening in
Yes.
the
Exactly.
region, right?
Exactly.
And these things that are happening outside of Asia. I mean,
Mhm.
Southeast Asia specifically.
Yeah.
And it's been really exciting. I have to agree.
Yep.
But now we're interested to bring this into our region in
Sure.
Southeast Asia.
Sure.
I always ask this, and it's a hard question, but how do we do that?
Mm.
I think it's already happening.
Mm.
Singtel and Razer,
Yes.
they have joined forces into like pushing esports not only in Singapore but across the region.
region.
Then Malaysia, when they released their budget, they allocated like 10 million ringgit just
for
to
esports.
exactly to
That's it.
like
Only
nurture
10.
the esports scene. Exactly. And then Indonesia, they have this whole league
For
just-
universities, yes.
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
We
and
talked
then
about
also-
this
yeah.
with Alan Chow.
Yeah.
that
Right.
said that, yes,
Both
yes.
in Indonesia and also in Malaysia, there are these like university leagues.
Yes.
In Indonesia, there's this thing called IESPL,
Yes.
Indonesian
Mm.
Esports Premier League.
Yes.
That's just want to nurture the homegrown teams in Indonesia. And then like Vietnam is coming along, Myanmar is coming along as
Right,
well.
right.
Myanmar.
So it's pretty amazing. Like every report you read, they're talking about Southeast Asia. That
Yes.
it's maintaining the highest amount of growth, and it's the region to watch out for.
Yes.
What's fascinating about this though is that even though all this money is pouring, even though all these things are happening, I would say the average person has no idea what esports is. Still,
Yeah.
you talk to most people, you tell them esports, they might have heard about it, they might have a very vague concept of what it actually is. So I think what's needed to make this real push to the mainstream would be to, like we were discussing, I think in the event we were at, to have more content, to have more podcasts like what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Just talking about this to make it more approachable for people. Maybe also get into the lives of the players, the lives of the coaches, the lives of the teams, documentaries, movies, etc. That are for the general
Absolutely.
public.
Yeah,
So they see
absolutely.
that these guys are also people, that these guys have a life, that they play games, they play a lot of games. Their mothers probably weren't very happy,
Yes.
but they still have a life. They still have normal
Yes.
people problems.
Yeah.
And yes, that's definitely what we're trying to accomplish with this show and all.
Sure.
And thank you for reaffirming that. It's really great to hear as well.
Yeah.
So, content. I mean, you guys with coaching, I think you will have some sort of content to be pushed
Yeah.
out as well, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
But now I'm thinking, what kinds of content would actually be helping the scene moving forward in terms of, attracting outsiders from the industry?
Yeah, like
Because we always talk about creating more content. I mean, stories, of course, they're really great. Like the True Sight from the
Yeah.
International, if you've
Yeah.
heard of it, it's really great. But it
Yes.
still caters to those who are in the scene, right? Now, how do we catch those people outside the scene?
I think a good example is what League of Legends did in the last World Championship with the KDA, I believe it's called, the group of
Right.
A virtual
Yes.
band.
the
Yeah.
virtual band.
Right.
That was fantastic, and that was trending on YouTube, on Twitter,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was based on a game. Yes, there was some real girls over there actually singing, but it was bringing something from a game into the real world.
Mhm.
And people might or might not be aware that was part of the part of a game.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it brought it very much to the mainstream.
Yeah.
So I think these kind of things, and what I was saying before, also movies and documentaries and things, and
Yeah.
just bringing it to the mainstream, just content that people want to
Yeah.
see, regardless of whether it's related to games or not.
Right.
Again, the Asian Games, the SEA Games,
Yes.
then the speculations of having esports in Paris 2024 Olympics. So I think these sort of like recognition would actually push it towards the mainstream crowd a lot more.
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah.
I think two companies that actually do it pretty well are, actually Riot Games and Epic Games, right? Because they have this whole IRL part to their virtual campaign as well,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You had Fortnite dropping supply crates
Yeah,
and
that was epic.
Instagram pictures.
Pun
and-
intended.
Yeah, it was epic. And then on the other hand, you got Riot, who releases the not that I'm sexist, but in the girliest music video,
Yeah.
which actually all my guy friends love. They
course they
bought
do.
the masks, they love it,
Yes.
and it's just crazy. So I think if anything, when I see stuff like PUBG not doing much, and
Right.
just publishers not really putting that much of an effort,
Yeah.
you just think it's not that hard to be a little creative and just help your own brand while
Yes.
entertaining the
Helping
masses.
the whole industry as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely.
And it's also the push that people are trying to go towards right now is content marketing. So you mentioned publishers' interest. It's really concerning that they are not catching up with this trend yet, which is to market their products using content. Because when we talk about content, people care so much more when they are engaged with meaningful content, right?
Right.
So
I think they're already making use of the trends for a
Yes.
bit. I'd put Call of Duty Black Ops 4. as an
Right.
example. So before the release of the game, they actually gave the early access to the most popular streamers on
Right.
Twitch and YouTube.
Mm.
So like imagine Shroud was playing
All-
Black Ops
all-
4
yes.
all
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
for a week before the
release.
release of the game. Then there were people like doing walkthroughs of the campaigns
Yeah.
as well.
Mhm.
Then people playing battle royale mode. So, and even though I'm not a big Call of Duty fan,
Yes.
after Modern Warfare 2, I gave up on it. Even I caught up with it, and it was breaking the Twitch live stream records every
Records.
day.
Mm.
Yeah, it was beating Fortnite, beating LOL every day. So it built up that hype.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then once the game was released, everyone just went for it, and I think they broke some records in in digital sales and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I think that's how publishers are looking at it, and
Mhm.
it's proving pretty effective
Yeah.
for them
Yes.
as well.
It's really great for the big companies. So
Yeah.
how do the smaller companies
They-
jump on this trend?
Ooh.
Not
Because
too
it's easy for them
Yeah,
because they
yeah.
have the brand first of all,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Everybody's aware of Call of Duty,
Yeah.
and now they're just capitalizing on this trend
Yeah.
and leveraging it more.
Yeah.
But it's hard for this. One thing that is interesting is teams are
Mhm.
trying to get recognized
Right.
to be a brand that is,
Yeah.
like if we see their logo somewhere and we recognize that.
Yeah.
What do you think they need to do to catch up to this trend? What kind of content would people care enough about so that they'll be engaged with the brand?
I think more insights into their lives,
Mm.
humanizing them.
Humanizing.
Yeah, you follow the Instagram profiles of all these big
Mm.
European football clubs,
Right.
Instagram, YouTube, all the social media,
Yeah.
and you'd see during the rest of the week when the games are not going on, they would always have some sort of activities going on over there, and that's something I think Team Impunity.
Right.
You might be aware. They do quite a lot on that. I've been
Yeah.
following their Facebook
Team
Facebook
Impunity.
stream. Yeah.
Yes, it's interesting.
Yeah,
Team
yeah,
Impunity.
yeah. So they do quite a lot of these things which brings along the players and shows that they're not just
Yeah.
playing
Yes.
24/7. There's a human side
Human
to that
side.
as well.
So he
Yeah.
touched on that, right? That it's not necessarily the small companies, because the big brands have the brand
Yes.
name, but
Yeah.
it's not actually the small companies that are trying to do this more. It's the teams.
The teams.
If you look at the North American League of Legends Championship Series,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you got teams like Team Liquid,
Mhm.
100 Thieves, Echo Fox, TSM, and these guys all put in tons of effort into their content
Mm.
Yeah.
production.
Yeah.
It's like every week an episode,
Yeah.
20 to 30 minutes long, unbelievable production quality.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
It captures the essence of the feeling or the mood for that week, or what they're going through. And you actually, as a if I spend 20, 30 minutes of my time watching that, I'm not really getting anything except for entertainment value, and
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
to see what he or she is going through,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's really great. I think I like the word humanizing because that's what I think we are trying to do with content, right?
Yeah.
Get behind the story of these
Yes.
players. And when I remember I keep watching these documentaries about the players I care about,
Yeah.
and it actually brings me to tears, because
Mm.
you see the struggle that they went through,
Yeah.
and looking at them now with the success and all the trophies and all the fame, it's really inspiring for people. And I think this might just be that thing that would incentivize people to start investing their time into
Yeah.
games.
Exactly.
I'm smiling because I'm just thinking of how many movies have been made of the underdog in
Yeah.
boxing, the underdog in
Yes,
football,
yes.
the
Yeah.
underdog in basketball, the underdog in
So
golf.
true. Hey, you know what?
Coming and making it in, making a big the esports version. Sure, let's
Yeah.
have that.
The underdog isn't just a dog. An underdog isn't just an underdog. It's a hungry dog.
Yeah,
And that's why he'll win.
Precisely,
Yes, yes.
precisely.
And that's been the trend that's been shown by the
Yeah.
movies and
Yeah.
documentaries. So it's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
great to see. So okay, I want to talk about what are the things you hate about the trends in esports. Some people would argue that we don't need the investor money, and it's actually killing the industry in a way, because the way investment works is you need to see returns, right? And now we're talking about billions of dollars pouring into the industry, and it's sort of rushing the scene in a way that we might not be ready for this. What do you guys think about this?
There certainly needs to be more structure added to it. I mean, for example, again, comparison with traditional sports. For motor racing, you have the FIA.
Yes.
For football, you have FIFA, et cetera, et cetera. Kind of governing bodies over the whole of esports. Esports has none of that. Esports, I think, sorely needs some of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The problem here, of course, is that unlike the traditional sports, in esports, a publisher owns the game.
Yes.
So that governing body would need to kind of command over all of these publishers. And I think that's the tricky bit. I think that's why it hasn't happened yet. And I don't know how to do it, but I think therein lies the key to that happening.
Because the publishers hold a lot of power at the moment,
exactly.
right?
Yes.
They're hosting the
Exactly.
tournaments, they have the games, they make the changes, you know. It's a tricky one because you're essentially asking for like a UN for every single game title.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there's overlap between it's a tough one.
It is tough.
Yeah.
And the concern right now is if we don't get that governing body, would we be able to push this industry forward? What do you guys think?
I mean, it would still go ahead, I think, like in the fragmented fashion. And over time, it's gonna, like, you know, take more shape. For example, I think the Overwatch League is probably one of the best examples. Like what they're trying to do, like having these city-based teams and then, like, you know, people bidding like huge amount of money to kind of represent their cities. Yeah, exactly. $20 million.
20 million.
Yeah. That's the minimum bid. So I think like we'll see the structure, like, you know, going on. Whether it's gonna be accelerated anytime soon, probably not sure. Yeah.
Do you think it's still fine if we have that fragmentation of titles? Like, you know, Overwatch League with their own, Dota with the international, CS:GO with the majors. Is it fine the way it is today, or do we need to bring them together somehow?
I mean, it is together in some fashion.
Okay.
Because like imagine all the teams. They would always, like, you know, they would have like different squads for different games, right?
Yes.
Like Team Liquid, they have one of the best
Yes.
Dota 2 teams. They have like a League of Legends team as well. Then there's this new trend of acquiring Fortnite teams.
Yes.
Yeah.
So to some extent, the unification is there.
Yes.
But whether, like, you know, you can bring all the publishers to kind of like work together for one body.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough for the publishers to come together, and of course, teams are doing it with a house brand and you know different squads for different titles. But I just want people to watch all the titles, you know, because that's the challenge, right?
Sure.
People are invested in one game.
Yeah.
They watch all the tournaments, but they don't have the incentive to jump over to the other title and watch that game.
Yeah.
I mean, even similar genres like MOBA, LOL, League of Legends, Dota 2. I don't watch LOL.
Yeah,
I don't watch Dota 2
You
at
don't
all.
watch Dota 2.
I mean,
right?
LOL is the superior one, so I don't have to watch.
Well, yeah, I don't have to argue for Valve for this. They're gonna have to pay me for that. But yeah, that's the interest, right?
Yeah.
We want people to just keep watching games. And
I think
now,
at the end of the day, it's in everybody's interest. If they coordinate things and they make things work so that people can watch everything at the same time, it's going to be in all of the publishers' interest. So I think eventually it will come to happen for that very reason, because there's money behind it. Sadly, that's the reason it's going to happen.
True.
So yeah, I think sooner or later it will happen. Some sort of Olympics of games or something.
It'll have its own Olympics.
Yeah,
or
that's
something.
an idea I've been dabbling with, an esports Olympic, not the Olympic with esports, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's true.
But another problem with that is which games would be featured,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, if
That's
we're
a
talking
huge
about
question.
C games, I think, okay, what's your favorite game, Anik, in terms of esports?
Dota 2.
Dota 2.
Any day. Yeah.
Jesus?
I'd go for Fortnite.
Fortnite.
Yeah.
Okay, so for Jesus,
Yeah.
looking at the list of games in C Games 2019, there's no Fortnite,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Fortnite has a shortcoming that it's a very new game, so it's not quite established in the scene yet. But it definitely has the player base to vouch for it. So we'll be seeing a lot of it, I think.
Right, that's a fair point because it's pretty new, right?
Yeah.
For me, I enjoy CS:GO, and it's not in C Games. And there's another part of that is
The violence.
the
aspect,
violence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
think this is justified, right? Like, you know, this IOC thinking, hey, these games are violent. You shouldn't be showing this to people.
So that's the, like, you know, the give or take of like trying to push gaming for mainstream. Get my point. Like as long as if you like keep games and esports daily, like focus towards this like cult of gamers who would like like stay up till 4 a.m. in the morning to watch games. I think like it would work, but like once you like start to like push it to a more mainstream crowds, that's when like you have to balance it out, like whether like you want to push for this blood and gore stuff like that. And that's one of the debates being put forward for the Paris 2024 Olympics, where they think that they would exclude games which feature blood and gore. They would put in games that are a lot less violent and probably like more geared towards traditional sports. So imagine we might see FIFA being featured in the Olympics. Something along that line.
Amazing how a game like CSGO and Fortnite can be so similar, but then so different, just because of the blood and gore aspect, right? I mean, it's crazy.
Yes. So would this incentivize these publishers to censor their game in a way?
Oh, that's a tricky question. The natural answer would be yes, but I'm sure people would get very upset by this. So then they have that too. So I don't have the answer to
this
it.
This is already happening, I think. In China, I think they censor CSGO with blood and everything, right?
They censor the CSGO, then they changed a lot of the names of heroes to make it more SFW.
Name of heroes?
Yeah, there was this hero called Skeleton King, remember? In Dota 2, he changed to Raid King. But
was that because of...
No, in China, Skeleton... The word skeleton was like replaced by something else. Yeah, and then there are increased regulations over the like the dress up of the female characters, especially. So
when you go mainstream, you get mainstream problems as well.
Exactly.
Go back 10 years ago, no one cared that Lara Croft was like
true.
It's crazy.
Pyramid boobs.
Yeah, it's so true, dude.
Triangle boobs.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and China is leading in this regard. Like they don't care about what people think; they just censor shit.
Hey,
right?
and you know, speaking on behalf of Riot Games, our game has LGBTQ friendly characters. So,
that's awesome. I mean,
we actually do.
I don't know though. I mean, I'm not familiar with LoL.
Yeah.
Can you?
We have one openly like LGBTQ character, and then another one that's also rumored to be But like they've come out and said, and then she like in her catchphrases and stuff, she says it as well. Like she'll be like hitting on a girl or hitting on a guy as well, or it's pretty interesting.
That's really interesting.
I think Overwatch released something similar.
Overwatch
I read it somewhere.
But then again, I feel like the world is the world at the end of the day, and humans are humans. Someone's going to turn around and say, "Hey, I don't want that in the game." I don't want my kid exposed to that.
Yes.
It's just ridiculous.
But it's just the way it is, and there's not much we can do to change those people, right? So I think we just have to go forward
you can make everyone happy.
Yes,
you have to be neutral.
And we really just have to care about those people who are supportive of this, right? We don't need to spend time making these people our believers. We don't need that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's just put this in a wrap. And before we go, I think I have to ask this question. I ask this to everyone. Who do you guys think should be on the show next?
And you can be as wild and wacky, creative as you want.
Anyone you think?
I don't know, bring Ice.
I really want to do that.
I loved his interviews. Like like they would usually have him as translator for his Chinese teammates, and he would always come up with the wackiest translations.
Sneaky guy. All right, Ice is a really good one, and I've been thinking about him a lot. But we're trying to get a channel. So anyone out there who's listening to this who knows Ice, just forward this to him. Let him know we have a session open next month, and come in. All right.
How about you?
I'd actually love to see somebody from the big publishers to see what they have to answer to some of these kind of overarching questions.
Right.
Epic Games, Riot Games, Valve, whomever, but somebody with some decision-making power from those guys to see what they think about all this.
Yeah,
I'd definitely listen to that.
All right. Yes. So big publishers.
Yep.
Mark Gaven and
Mark Merrill. If you're listening to this, Mark Merrill, come on the show.
And Gabe Newell. I know you're listening to this. Come to Singapore. ping me, and we'll get a show on.
Nasi
All right.
lemak on us.
So yeah, okay, before I end this, I just want to give a shout out to those who are listening to our podcast, and I just want to get the word out that we are looking for supporters every day, and we want to keep this sustainable so we can bring more interesting people, more interesting players and stories, and we want to get the stories out there so people can learn more about the industry and, you know, care more about it. So if you're interested in supporting the podcast in any way that you can think of, you can contact us and we can get a discussion going. And of course, we have more guests coming. Tomorrow we have 2, and hopefully next month we're going to have more people just like Anik and Jesus. So with that, I'll just end the show here. I want to thank you guys again. Thank you, Anik.
Thank you very
Jesus.
much,
Thanks
guys.
for having us.
Really
Thanks, guys. It's
glad
been a pleasure.
that you guys stepped up and came to the show.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the next episode. So we'll see you guys in the next one.
See you guys.